Josh, obviously we were all able to get the, you know, printout of your presentation through the link. And I know you're going to, now we're in a better room set up to actually do this via screen. So yeah, appreciate you giving us a second attempt at this.
Yeah, you bet. And if you all don't mind, I know you have the presentation in front of you, and that presentation is centered around things like myth busting and all of that. I thought we might just as things have developed, it might be a good idea to dive deeper into Sheridan County a little bit more and dive a little bit deeper into questions that you might have, knowing that yeah, some of the information that I'm going to share today will be similar to what you see in that presentation that you all had. Maybe I could just start with that. Would it be possible to answer any questions you all have about the last time we talked, or the presentation that you have printed out there, Commissioner, and others have probably reviewed, and then maybe we can dive into more specifics about Sheridan County. Would that be okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Do folks have any questions from the last presentation, or no?
Okay.
Sounds like we're just ready to hear your presentation.
Okay. Well, let me do this. I'm going to, if you don't mind, I'm going to jump in to a little bit of that data, maybe a little bit deeper level. And this may be, I'll share this entire poll with all of you. But as one of the things that we went through last time, we talked a little bit about, and we shared the presentation on some of the statewide attitudes toward growth. And as you probably remember, we've been working on really setting up our communities for growth over the last really 28 years, but specifically in the last 10 or so years, we've really focused in on how do we prepare our communities for growth, and then really look at how do we make sure that we're getting the best return on investment for state dollars when we're working with the community. And so we've been working an awful lot on that. But one of the things that we ran into a lot was this idea that Wyoming maybe doesn't want to grow. In fact, we would run into this sentiment quite a bit as we went around the communities to say, okay, well, what are some of your growth problems, or what are the challenges that your community faces? And people would say, well, they don't want us to grow. And we said, well, who are they? And it was always a hard thing to define. And so we said, well, look, this is coming up enough that we should really try to understand what is the sentiment of Wyomingites toward growth. Because the one thing that we don't want to do is be out there trying to get communities to grow, or to really have programs that help growth if quote unquote nobody wants to grow. And so we did this poll as a way to start to understand that. It is by no means the definitive answer to that question, but it is a start to understand, how do we view growth? How do we want growth? What are the outcomes, benefits, and drawbacks of growth? And how do we help our communities understand what their constituents feel, and understand what the sentiment is toward that? So as you approach new policies or investments in your community, that you can be equipped with that information just as well. That's something that we look at very closely. Or what are the policies that we should utilize to help with unlock growth in our communities? And then what are the investment mechanisms that we should use? And as many of you are aware, in Sheridan County, and you can gleam with pride at this, or you can say you're not going to rest on your laurels. You can choose your own adventure on how you take this. But I think it's pretty clear that Sheridan County has been a bit of a poster child for how investing in infrastructure and really working to to recruit companies, as well as help companies who already exist there to grow, can really change an economy. And I think you are all feeling that and seeing that. I don't have it today, but I want to describe a couple different things. Sheridan County has sort of gone through a number of ups and downs due to the outside factors that all of Wyoming faces, and those boom and busts are challenging for for businesses, they're challenging for our youth, they're challenging for our communities to sort of make ends meet. I'm preaching to the people who are actually the real preachers on this. All of you know that better than I do. But one of the things that we found is that Sheridan County, because of long-term investment, of looking at how do we change the landscape of our community, and how do we make sure that we continue to invest in our future, you are the poster child for a lot of these programs. And I say that and I want you to know it's really meaningful to be able to be a partner in that growth. I also know that we are just a small piece of that, and we are not responsible for that. We were able to come in and help to do that, and we'll talk about some of those things in a bit. And when we compare it to other counties, we can see a stark difference. And what I mean is that there are other counties who have taken the approach of, we don't want anything. We want to stay exactly how we are, and we want people to sort of leave us alone, for lack of a better term. And I'm not going to out those counties, but I because it's a choice that people make. But we see a dramatic difference in the number of jobs that are created, the number of opportunities that Wyomingites have, and the outlook on the future that county has. And I like I mentioned, I don't have the graph in front of me, but if I look at manufacturing employment over the last, say, almost 20 years, Sheridan has continually grown, and you have filled in any gaps that you might have felt from things like coal mining or oil and gas production, things like that. And you have then grown on top of that. And there's another county that is just north of me now that is experiencing the exact opposite. The investments in the future have not been made. The outlook is very challenging. It's likely going to get worse, and it's steadily declined over the last same time period where Sheridan has grown. And I think it's important for all of us to just remember that it's possible to make a positive impact on our economy. It's possible to not just let things decline as the quote unquote free market might allow or create. And it's possible for you to have that effect. And I think all of those things are known to all of you. And so one of the things I hope to share today is that why people care. And why people care about that is because Wyomingites want to stay in Wyoming, by and large. Yet we have to leave at a rate that's twice the national average, and that is more than any other state in the nation. But we don't want to. We love Wyoming. We want to stay in Wyoming, and we want to have opportunities in Wyoming, and be able to also raise our children in Wyoming and give our children opportunities. And so I'm going to start with this graph because I think it starts to demonstrate how important this is to Wyomingites. It says, how important would you say it is, if at all, for local government to invest in programs that focus on retaining or attracting young people and recent graduates in your local region? And you'll see that 63% say it's either extremely or very. And then on top of that, you add another 27% to take you up to about 90% of people feel that it is important for local government to invest in programs that focus on retaining and attracting young people and recent graduates to your region. Now, again, you all understand that. You all see the effects of investing in yourself and working hard to make opportunities possible. It doesn't mean you're creating them without business and the private industry. It means you're creating them alongside. And I think from the state's perspective, we want to be alongside as well in that journey. And so I also will share this. If you haven't seen this deep data, it actually goes down into data about Sheridan County, and it gives you some indication of how people feel in your community. And so I think that it might be important for you to take a deeper dive into that. Does this sound outrageous, or does it resonate with what you're hearing in your community?
I would say for me and kind of the circles that I'm involved in, that yeah, this would definitely resonate. You know, we've seen some great opportunities just for high school students in School District 2 with their internship programs. You know, Kennan, for example, has done a terrific job getting high school seniors in there, and then providing a job in the summer in between college semesters for those kids. So it's just for me, that piece has been nice to see.
I would agree. And I guess I'd say because of the career and technical education programs at the high school and especially at Sheridan College, that we have created some more opportunities for young people, but certainly not enough. And as you know, in other communities and certainly in the Sheridan community, our issue is not necessarily so much job related as it is housing related. As for, yeah, they can get a pretty good job, but can they afford to live here? So that's the other issue.
I'm going to be on a little bit on the opposite side because the individuals that I've talked to are not in agreement with it. But, you know,
So no economic development.
I don't think it's no economic development. I think it's more leaning towards the idea of economic development through infrastructure versus economic development of victims, winners, and losers. That's more what I hear from the public that I talk to.
Yeah, I think that's a really good topic, Commissioner Jennings, to think about. Infrastructure development is definitely in our view one of the key components that we can play that role in. And, you know, thinking about like the high-tech business park and the next level of high-tech business park, as well as not just things that the state plugs into, but the things that the federal government and the local government plugs into to create that infrastructure. And I think that those are really, really key elements to that. And so, yeah, I think as we look at that, I think that's what we have to take a hard look at. I'll give you an example. It's not in Sheridan County, so I apologize that I'm going to use something from our friends down a little bit south of you in Natrona County, but that's exactly what is happening in certain parts of the state where the infrastructure was not there. A business that was already in Natrona County wanted to expand, and they said, "Hey, how do we do this? We are being lured away." They actually have already a location in the Front Range of Colorado, but they said, "We want to stay here." But we have a responsibility to our shareholders, to our management team, to our employees to make good business decisions. How can we stay in the Casper area and do that? And so we put in a water line and sewer and other infrastructure, and that unlocked a big industrial park. And it's a very similar thing to the high-tech business parks there, being able to open up that for further development by the private industry. And our part was about $9 million, which is not an insignificant investment, but it unlocked $70 million of private investment into that facility, and it unlocked 400 really good jobs, engineering jobs. And so I think you're right. I think the infrastructure piece is a huge component of where we can partner together with the local communities, and we hope to be able to continue to do that. I think that's well said, that we want to focus on that infrastructure and make sure that we're helping a community sort of be unlocked for growth, not necessarily be the ones who decide what growth it is. I have a question for all of you, maybe. What do you think? So housing is a challenge because that constrains workforce. What are some of the ways that you've looked at maybe some of these challenges that you have, like housing, and what are some of the ways that you've sort of dug into the problem to understand it maybe at a deeper level?
Hey, you know, most recently, we teamed up with the city to put some ARPA dollars together that we then turned over to a housing board that we created. It was kind of housed within Habitat. And I'm not sure, they've maybe got 5 or 6 homes out there built, I think, with some infrastructure and trades with lots. I think they'll have 33 attainable housing units out there that'll be completed. Now doesn't really move the needle, but it was kind of clear to us that folks weren't interested in a housing authority. They appreciated the financial support from government, but didn't want government involved beyond that point. So, I don't know what the next steps or the next project might be behind trying to figure out attainable housing, but that's what we've done so far.
Okay. How is the regulatory environment around housing in the county and the city there? Have you talked to builders and developers to find out what is a stumbling point there?
And anyone else can feel free to speak up too, but I don't mean to toot the county's horn, but our planning and zoning board and our planning office do a really good job. This streamlining permits bill that's going through doesn't even impact Sheridan County because we get all of our permits out faster than that. I know the city's gone through a process where they were reviewing their regs to see if there were some things that they could streamline. I don't know how much that's necessarily helped or move the needle. My husband's a contractor, and it sounds like there might be some bumps there still in the city, but I know there have been efforts to address it via regulations just to see how we can't streamline things or get the price down on building requirements.
Sure. Okay. Cool.
Truthfully, I don't think it's so much an issue of regulations or an issue of what barriers to building things is so much that if they can build $600,000 and $700,000 homes and put them on the market and successfully sell them, why do they want to build a $250,000 or $300,000 home? I mean, I truthfully think that's the biggest barrier is that the more expensive homes are selling, so they're making more money on those, the contractors as a rule, and I think that's more of a barrier than any kind of regulations.
In our conversations with other communities when we were trying to figure out how to best use these ARPA dollars, that was one of our questions to Jackson, because they have plenty of folks there, building $1 million homes, and it's really promoting it to out of town contractors who want some projects in Jackson for their portfolios as a company. So that's how they were able to bring in other contractors from outside of the county.
Yeah, and far be it from any of us to tell a contractor that they shouldn't build the home that's going to help them maximize their time and money as well, right? Like we should absolutely encourage that. So okay, yeah, it's a complex topic. I think there are a lot of little things there that we can work on, and sometimes it's not one big thing. It might be a combination of things. So it sounds like you're tackling a lot of those. Just to kind of, I think this data might reiterate the point that we were talking about a little bit more before about that you all mentioned. These are investments that you think would be the best to support economic development in your community. As Commissioner Jennings mentioned, infrastructure upgrades. I think it was Commissioner Siddle talked about the job training programs maybe, and then we were talking a little bit about industrial park development as well. And so you can see that those are elements. The business recruitment incentives, just so all of you know, we have very little of those in Wyoming, actually. We don't incentivize business recruitment quite like other states. We're not like a Texas or an Idaho where we're competing and we throw money at them because we one, cannot do that, and two, it doesn't always work out the way that we would like. So just to kind of give you a feel for that data. I'm going to jump, let's see. I thought this one was pretty, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I just, last week we were in Cheyenne for the County Commissioners Association conference, or 2 weeks ago now. And we had a presentation from Cheyenne Leads. Mm-hmm. And it was really interesting, just the conversation around, Wyoming's kind of inability, for lack of a better word, to provide those subsidies to any great degree because we have such a low tax structure
Mhm.
at the get-go.
Yeah, I think that is that is a subsidy. It's just not, it doesn't make as much sense to a lot of the businesses that you're hoping to recruit, because they have to compare apples to oranges, or we have to try to convert it to apples so that we can compare apples to apples, and it makes it a little more difficult. But it is a bit of a subsidy, if you will, over time. If you were to talk, and you have some really good examples, I think, in your community to talk with, and I think if you were to talk with folks like the Weatherbees to understand the process that they went through to move their business from California. They did not choose Wyoming outright and say we're moving there no matter what. It was a competition between states, and I think that they would. I would invite you, actually, if business recruitment is something you want to get more into, is to ask them from their perspective, because I think it's important to understand how they think about that move and what is important to them, not necessarily what we think. And so I would invite you to ask them. I thought this was a pretty interesting result from the survey, and it talked about growing the population in our communities to support more economic opportunities and jobs. And again, what I would tell you with any poll is that these are starting points and an understanding of the data, but I think it's important to dig a little bit deeper. But as you can see here, a full 65% favored even population growth if it meant more economic opportunity and jobs. And so I think it's just important for us to sort of understand that while there is a group, 31% of people say they don't want to have population growth, I think it's important to understand that sometimes we don't always have all of the data. We might have the certain voices, but we don't always have all of the data to understand what our policies might be. And folks who are making decisions like you are about investments in your community, I think it's just important to be able to dig down into that. And again, in Sheridan County, 69% favored growth, with 26% not favoring, or excuse me, 5% opposed and 26% were unsure about population. So I'll share all of this data with all of you so you have the deeper look. And if it's okay with you, I want to do two things. I want to do a quick time check. How are you all doing for time? Because I want to be respectful of all of your time. And then I thought I might switch over to a little bit of a regional view of Sheridan County and the work we've all done together, if that's okay.
Yeah, we're good on time.
Okay. So I might just jump here. I'm gonna give me a second here so I can make sure that I have the data. Can you see all of this? Oops, wrong one. Can you see all of this data again?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I thought it might be good to just take a quick look at some of the things that we're doing in Sheridan County right now, and I'm super hopeful. Again, like I said, you've always been really good partners and been willing to not just work with us, but also to put your money where your mouth is too. So I wanted to jump into a couple things. One, many of you and many of you might have been part of this, that assessment to action program that we have developed with communities to really dive in and start to look at some of the challenges. And housing was one that that your group, a group of leaders in Sheridan, dove into with our team to really kind of take a look at what are some of the root causes. It's not just the maybe the knee-jerk reactions that we all might have, but what are the real root causes, and understanding some of those challenges. And so just wanted to kind of give you a heads up on that. That's an element that we believe can continue to make a difference in communities. And that is that problem-solving approach, and making sure that we're not just looking at kind of getting tunnel vision to a solution that we love, but maybe taking a broader look at the problem and making sure that we're really addressing the root causes of that. I'm gonna just jump down a little bit into some of the the BRC projects, and just to kind of talk through some of these and get your take on what is the vision for the rest of the, what does 10 years out look like? And so I thought this was pretty interesting. So over the last, gosh, it's been quite a while, probably 20 years almost. The state has put in about $37 million into the Sheridan County projects. You all have matched about $17.5 million, and then the private side of the house came in and matched it with 18. So it's kind of a 1-to-1 between the state and then then what I would call local, which is private and local government in there, and it's a really good, I think, a really good model for that, because it shows you have skin in the game. It shows that you're willing to work on this together. And so I wanted to show you this because I thought it was pretty interesting. If you look at some of the dates that things were awarded, you've got back in 2019, 2018, there was a whole lot about, there was a whole lot of work done. Oops, excuse me, I'm going to try to get rid of some of these pop-ups that keep coming up. You can see that there was quite a bit of work done, and it probably started much, much sooner than that if we went really down in here to the 2014s and that. But I wanted to just help you all see some of the progress that has been made by Sheridan County over time by consistently working on this. And so if you look at this, one of the reasons that you're sort of a star is that starting way back in 2004, you have continued to work on things. And I know that this is just a small piece of what you all work on every day, but I think it's really important to show and to see, and again, maybe sort of pat yourselves on the back for the amount of work that you've done on really taking a look at economic development and the amount of time that it takes, because you have continually worked on it, and therefore you are going to continually see results from that. And I wanted to kind of like remind you of all of those things that have been happening, but also to just remind you that we can't stop. Stopping that is just going to slow the momentum. And I really do feel like it's a flywheel effect. And what you've created is a flywheel that's spinning pretty well. Any thoughts on that? Again, this is probably small potatoes compared to what you all have invested over the last 20 years or so. But I just thought it was really a good indicator of a community that continues to work on something and doesn't stop.
Anybody have any questions, comments about any of those projects? Yeah, I personally feel like that's a great list. And I'm aware just in Northeast Wyoming, not related specifically to the Business Council, but with, for example, the Rural Development Fund and the Wyoming Smart Capital, there is a need out there for businesses looking for support to expand. Yeah, I guess just adding that as, what I'm hearing from businesses looking for support.
Yeah. What if you were all so this is the group that I always love to talk to, because you have to look into the future, right? You're a group that has to sort of see the future. So, tell me what your vision of Sheridan County is for the next 10 to 20 years. Like what do you see that's happening? What's exciting to all of you, or scary? I'm okay with either.
I guess me personally, I feel like Sheridan's been on a good track in terms of having incredible schools, an engaged community, great art scene. Our recreation opportunities are incredible. We had kind of a funny little blip, I think, like a lot of places during COVID, with folks being able to work remotely or get out of the states where they were living in and where they didn't maybe agree with COVID policies. So I think that was a little scary for folks for a bit. But I think any community, I'd love to see us, let's say, stay at maybe 2 or 3% growth. just because I think, you know, we want to continue growing those businesses. I mean, if we're really talking about having a place that's vibrant enough to our kids want to come back, I think we need that that smallish type of growth just to, you know, keep reinvigorating the community.
Maybe let's go around the table. This will be fun. Yeah.
As we look at it, we certainly need to look at our land use, look at our availability of water, look at our growth potential, and that I mean, I agree with Chrissy that 2% is maybe a pretty good number. But I certainly don't want to see 5%. You know, I don't want to see, I think we need to look at a point where we kind of get a little closer to level than huge growth, just because of infrastructure, because of what we have. And just be careful. I guess what I'm saying is I don't want to see us become Bozeman. You know?
How big is
Yeah.
Bozeman? I don't know Bozeman very well.
I don't know.
I don't know for sure, but I know that they grew so fast that they had some real difficulties. Yeah.
Yeah.
Josh, I don't know. My crystal ball is pretty cloudy and somewhat broken. So what the future holds, I don't know. But I do agree with Christy and Nick's comments, and also agree with you that once the momentum is going, to put it in neutral is devastating. So to keep pushing forward is very important. And I hope that we can continue to do that.
Holly or Mike, any thoughts on what you'd like to see for Sheridan?
For me personally, you know, you talked about concerns versus positives. I mean, I do see a lot of positives in this community, things that are moving forward, but my biggest concern is where we're going with the idea of housing market and becoming more along the lines of Jackson Hole, where we don't have, I mean, you talked about moving forward and not wanting to go into neutral, but you can only take that car down the river so far if you don't have the gas to put into it. And if we don't have the housing for the people to stay here to continue to do what they're doing for service providers, I think we're stuck. We're going to be in neutral or.
Well, that's part of moving forward. Continue on with trying to develop attainable and affordable housing.
Well, and I think, you know, that was part of the reason, you know, before we started looking at the economic development task force that is here locally, before we wanted to jump into any sort of strategic economic plan, we really felt like we had to address the housing first, and that's where that housing study came into play. And then the subsequent attainable housing board that came out of it. So yes, absolutely, Holly.
And I'm probably more, I'm obviously very much more interested in the idea of the free market instead of the government infused attainable housing. I think we need to look more at how can we deregulate even further to cause lower income housing to be available. I think there's options. I don't know where we go with it, if we can even make it work. But I think if we continue to push and push and push and say, hey, we want all of these businesses to come, but we don't have the ability to house the workforce, I think we could cause some significant damage. My 2 cents. For whatever that's worth. Not 2 cents, probably.
We obviously don't really have, in my opinion, that much of an employment. I mean, everybody's got help wanted signs out in the windows and stuff, but the higher paying jobs are harder to come by. But we have a low unemployment rate in this area. I think what Holly's leaning towards is with the housing scenario. How do you balance that, and is it actually even our job, or should we get out of it and let private industry and let the balances take care of itself? That's where I come from.
Yeah. Yeah, that is the rub right there. I think you actually might know where the quote unquote free market is on that one. That's why you don't have any. If the market is saying build a $750,000 house, that's that's exactly how it works, right?
Said with the contractors, if they can, because they're gonna get a heck of a lot more return on their investment of a $700,000 house than they would a $250,000 house.
Yes, sir.
So that's what's gonna happen first, and then everything else is gonna end up catching up later. It's just kind of like pouring water into a bowl. Eventually it equalizes itself, but for a while we certainly have some growing pains going on.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. You are all experiencing it much more firsthand than I. You have a much better feel for that. What if you don't mind? We went a few years ago. We brought in an organization that does economic development consulting at a local level, and so they work with communities to say, hey, this is by and large, if this is what you're trying to accomplish, here's the type of team you need, here's the amount of funding you need to have, and those kinds of things, and just to try to understand, the economic development organization landscape in Sheridan County. We did it around the state and had some things to help people with. What is how does the county, and forgive me if I don't know this, but what does the county, city, college, how does all of that work together? Do you fund that? Do you feel like you should fund it less? Do you feel like you should fund it more? What's your take on economic development in Sheridan County?
So our economic development task force kind of ebbed and flowed in terms of activeness over the last probably 2 decades. And it is, the participants you mentioned, as well as our downtown Sheridan area association, the Chamber of Commerce. Trying to think who else is there. So it's, there's maybe a dozen groups represented there. And there have been some opportunities to chip in for some feasibility studies. And most recently, having the consultants come in and look at Sheridan and what we needed. It honestly, personally for me, didn't feel like it really told us anything we didn't know. Like, we need money to support somebody full time. Because we're all kind of doing what we can around our day jobs.
Yep.
So, I think knowing we have the commitment, knowing what those dollars are, and I think some sentiment that we were kind of moving at the pace we wanted to be moving is where I felt like we ended up.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got a gentleman that's kind of heading our economic development task force up, but he's a college employee.
Yep.
And a great job. He'd be the first one we'd want to hire, but he's probably got jobs over there for the college right now. So
you're not speaking of Robert Briggs, are you?
Yes. Yeah.
He is a gem of a person and an economic developer. You're lucky to even get a little bit of his time, I think. He is. I think
our next grant application is to somehow send him to wherever they made Dolly and get him cloned.
we who knows? That's no, we're in the brainstorming process, so any idea is a good one. I appreciate that. Let me ask maybe a little bit different way of looking at this. How about so obviously as a county, you're looking at not just the city of Sheridan, but you're looking at all of those communities. What are your thoughts on regionalizing it even more and working working more closely or working together as a region of counties. What's the sentiment there, or how might that work or not work?
I,
And I apologize for throwing that idea out at you. It just there's been some talk in the legislature about sort of going to this idea of some model of consensus funding for counties. And while I appreciate that, and I think it could be an interesting solution, I wonder if we could look at ourselves maybe more regionally, like the EDA. So, for example, the EDA, the federal agency that does this, they want like economic development plans to be regionalized. They don't want it to be statewide, which we have. They want it to be regionalized, and they don't want it to be too small. So what are your thoughts around maybe some sort of regional plan that covered the entire northeast corner of the state?
you know, I think that would, relatively speaking, I think that wouldn't be a hard stretch. You know, we've had the Newey group, Converse Campbell, Sheridan Johnson. I think, I can't remember Weston Crook where they fall, but now with the County Commissioners Association, we've got regional groups continuing to bring in congressional staffers.
Mhm.
While we're not specifically talking about economic development, we are sharing those economies in our more localized areas. So I think there are some things that make sense there, but you know, as you know, Sheridan County's got a much different economy than Campbell County. You know, we don't have the oil and gas. Our coal mines are and were in Montana. So some places it might be a little harder to connect, maybe some sort of continuum of a particular sector. But I think we work well together now, I guess would be my point.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody has something else to add.
I would agree with that. We are so diverse in Northeast Wyoming. Every county is, I mean, you can't compare any two counties in Northeast Wyoming at all. Their business impact, their industry, everything about them is totally different. The closest might be Johnson County to us, and that would be about it. So I think I agree with you. I think that we're as close as we can get to any kind of a regional commitment.
We'd sure be glad to have some of Campbell County's money, though.
Yeah.
If we can share with that, we would certainly love to have some of their financial impact.
Well, actually, it's funny you say that. So I was talking with them the other day, and I didn't know if I should broker this deal right now. But I want to throw this idea out at you. Okay. So Campbell County said that they would be willing to give you 5 years of all of their proceeds if you would just lose a freaking football game once in a while. That's just what they said. I'm not telling you that you have to do that, but I'm just saying, like, maybe one loss in the state championship game would help you guys a lot.
Not happening.
That's what I told them. I said, I don't think they're going to buy that. I don't think I think the football is more important than anything else. So anyway, but I think that brings up a really good point, and that's one of the well, we'll call it the most beautiful things about Wyoming is that we are pretty unique as a state. And I think a lot of our counties and our communities are pretty darn unique too. And trying to figure out how to sort of regionalize things like other places is something that we're willing to explore. We want to take a look at, but at the same time, we want to appreciate that may not work. And I'll tell you right now, one of the things that I will not stop doing is trying things that may not work, but might also work. And so I think that we kind of owe it to ourselves to try some of those things. I think at the end of it, I think trying to figure out how to work together across that and understand the different economies and how they might play together might be an interesting topic. So it may be an area we delve into, and your input and insights are going to be super important in that, because like I said, you know your area way better than somebody at the state ever could. And so I appreciate, I'll appreciate the work and the thoughts when we kind of approach this next level.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Josh. And I guess, again, just for myself, I appreciate the Business Council's kind of conversation with the legislature this session around, yeah, let's look at it all and see where we can get better. So yeah, thank you for that.
My pleasure, and thanks for giving me some extra time. And what I will say to that is that I am so encouraged by the conversation we're having right now. I really feel like these are the conversations that we want to have. We want to be, completely transparent. We want to take a look at the things that we do well and take a look at the things that we don't do well, and work together with lawmakers to clean it up. I don't know if any of you know this, but we have a 94-page statute. It has stuff in it that is still hanging around since 2011, and it's been unfunded. And I'm sitting here going, guys, let's work on this. Let's clean this up. And so I think it's a really good opportunity for this. And I really look forward to it, because the conversation is not just a conversation. Out of the other end of that conversation should come policy that makes sense for Wyoming. And we should also be respectful and understand the investments that we make, how they're made, and we're definitely open to doing it better, because one of the things that I learned very, very early on is that if you think you're doing it perfect, you're probably not. And so I think we can always do better, and we're going to keep doing that. So I appreciate that sentiment, and I appreciate all the help with making sure people understand how these things really work, because it's not a simple task to do what a county like Sheridan has done over the last 20 years. But the results prove it out. And so we're here to be a partner, and we're here to help out. So I appreciate everything you continue to do. Like I said, we're just sort of the sprinkles, or maybe the cherry on top, when you guys have done all the work of making the cake and frosting it and everything. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your time and the
Thank you.
presentation
Thank
this
you.
morning.
Yep.
Appreciate it, Josh.
All right. Yep. See ya.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.